Hi everyone, Mike Holmes here. This is the Know Your Reno podcast, where listeners will hear from experts from Improve Canada.
Hi, my name is Olga, and I'm the host of the Know Your Reno podcast. Today in the studio, we have Sarah from Heft Home, and she's going to tell us a little bit about biophilic design.
Hi, Olga. Thank you so much for having me. Like you said, my name is Sarah. I own Heft Home, which is a furniture company that specializes in solid wood furniture. And our whole motto is to keep the perfect imperfections of solid wood and bring that into your home. So we have things like solid wood dining tables with live edges. And to that, we accent that with metal. So you kind of have nature as well as a more modern finish. And that way, it's a lot more digestible and easy to bring into your home and incorporate it.
Live edge furniture and using solid wood, those are all elements of biophilic design, right? Could you tell us a little bit about what biophilic design is?
Yes. So biophilic design derives from biophilia, which directly means love of life. So biophilia, if you notice, humans in general, we naturally gravitate to living creatures as opposed to inanimate objects. It's the reason why we're a lot more interested in plants and trees than we are into rocks. Same reason why there's a bajillion planets out there, but we only really care about the ones with life. So you can argue that comes from like an evolutionary standpoint that we want to, our planet's dying, we need to move away. But, biophilic design seeks to kind of oppose that notion and say, what if we start living in harmony with our planet, with our environment? So integrating natural kind of design aspects into our regular architecture, our office buildings, our malls, our homes, and everything in between.
Especially since we are in Toronto, and we know that downtown Toronto is a concrete jungle. How might people who do live in, huge condos, apartment buildings, and don't have a whole lot of access to even, say, a backyard, how could they incorporate biophilic design to make them feel a little bit closer to nature?
I think when people think of biophilic design, they think, okay, throw a plant in here and you're good to go. But, nature is a lot more than just various plants. So it's actually quite interesting, the origins of biophilic design. It didn't start with humans, surprisingly. It actually started with animals. So the origins were back when zoos were kind of a lot newer than they are now. Animals would just be left in cages that they were transported in. And, they weren't very exciting to look at because they were sad, they weren't eating, they were lethargic, sleeping most of the time. But the worst part is they weren't reproducing, which is a really bad thing for the zookeepers, obviously. So a scientist actually offered and suggested that they should try to mimic their natural habitats so that they are more comfortable and more willing to kind of interact with their habitats like they would in nature, giving the audience or giving the zoo visitors a more authentic experience. So if you take that point and you think about how humans for centuries have been living out in the wild, and it was only in recent years that we've kind of grown into this industrialized box type of lifestyles, that obviously it's going to have negative effects on our mental and physical health.
You've mentioned that biophilic design plays a role in our mental health and our overall physical well-being. Do you have any examples as to how that is exemplified?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the main cases that they talk about is hospitals and how patients that have a room with a garden view or just an overall nicer view, they take less pain medication, they make less calls, they're overall just in better spirits, better health. More than that, though, violence and crime rates definitely have seen a drastic decrease in areas where their trees are more lush and full and dense. Another thing is just, in general, a lot of office workers, 45% of office workers don't actually get natural lighting. And if you think about in Canadian winters, we leave in darkness. Typically, it's always dark before 9 o'clock, and after around 4:30 when the sun sets, you leave work at 5, and you're basically leaving in darkness and then getting home in darkness. So there's not a lot of natural light that you see, which obviously will take a toll on your health. Otherwise, though, for biophilic design, a lot of people scientists have seen 20% increase in productivity after even just spending 1 hour outside. And you can actually see that productivity with larger corporations because they actually have already started implementing biophilic design elements into their office buildings. So if you look at Google's office building, Amazon's office building, Etsy, Facebook, yeah, exactly.
Any of the big five, really,
exactly.
Sure.
They all have a lot of elements of nature incorporated into that. And if you noticed, typically the design of their buildings isn't this like standard kind of box cubicle type. It's different. It has a different type of shape. It's abstract. They have a lot of different colors, a lot of different elements of design, a lot of open lighting, windows, open space, open air. And that all aids in employee productivity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think now the kind of more beneficial aspect of maybe being in a pandemic is we're now all working from home and we have the opportunity to now kind of tailor our environment to, let's say, our mental health or our physical well-being or whatever it may be. But a lot of us do live in Toronto. You know, we live in a condo. It's a concrete jungle. We don't have a whole lot of opportunities to really create our environments around nature.
Yeah, obviously you can't make a green wall in your condo.
Do you have any suggestions for people that do want to incorporate that into their living situation, but maybe in a more minimal way?
Yeah. So, everyone knows adding plants is always a great idea, but more than just having a couple plants on the counters or a large floor plant, you want to try to have plants everywhere, create a plant ecosystem. So having plants that work together, that complement each other, air plants hanging from the ceiling, kind of all around surrounding you. You want to be surrounded by nature on all levels. Another thing is get as much open air as you possibly can. If you think about it, especially in Canada, we don't get exposed to a lot of fresh air. In the summer times, it's really hot. We close all of our windows and turn the AC on. In the winter, it's super cold. Close all of our windows and turn the heat on. Realistically, how much open, fresh air are we getting? It's almost always filtered air. So as much open air as you can get. I'm not saying, don't turn on the AC, don't turn on the heat, but maybe if you can keep it open for like an hour at a time every day. On the topic of abstract shapes, like I mentioned at those large firms, incorporating less sharp angles into your home and kind of more rounded shapes, live edges, like what shameless plug, but in general using natural materials. So not even just wood, but stone, raw metals, jute, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much to incorporate. If you want to add artwork to your space, instead of using the New York City skyline, maybe have artwork of Central Park. Instead of having geometric shapes, more soft, abstract shapes. Even going beyond the inside of your house, if you want to do any backyard renovations, incorporating a bird bath or more natural rocks instead of your standard walkway with slabs of concrete would benefit you. Spending more time making your garden prettier, adding flowers, trees, just more elements of nature so that when you are inside and you're looking outside, you have this beautiful view to kind of calm you.
I'm Mike Holmes. I've been trying to educate people on how to build it right, how to prioritize your renovations, and how to pick products and materials that will last. We love speaking to the Improve experts about how they are supporting the skilled trades. This is important to us, and it takes a whole community to stand behind the effort. Visit improvecanada.com to start your home improvement project the right way. Subscribe to the Know Your Reno podcast to learn more about how to renovate it right. And if you do see me at Improve Canada, please come by and say hi. Hope you enjoy the podcast and keep making it right.
How can we bring biophilic design maybe in the overall architecture of our homes or with furniture, right? You specialize in solid wood furniture. So I know we all became plant parents over the pandemic. Everyone's just buying plants that they can't keep alive, maybe. That's just me.
Yeah, I feel you on that one.
But beyond plants, what are some of the things that we can do maybe in terms of if someone is actually planning like a full-on renovation, right? How do you bring that into architecture? How do you bring that into your home furnishings? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So I feel like we as a kind of species have had this notion that it's us against nature. We have to control nature. Nature is separate from us. And the whole premise of biophilic design is to incorporate nature in our everyday kind of activities, in our everyday environments. So if you're doing a massive kind of renovation, the walls that you choose maybe have a huge accent wall that's all wood. Have you seen? They're trending a lot now. I think, especially after the pandemic, the huge
the slat walls.
The slat walls, exactly. Even if you can get some form of running water in your home as like an art piece, which is obviously a tall order, a lot to ask, but if you can have that the calming sounds of water does so much for your health, not only physically but mentally as well, and especially since a lot of us are working from home, that'll definitely benefit us. And then even the layout and structure of your house, it should be less kind of segmented. A lot of us have homes that are this room is for this and this room is for this, and they're all separated by walls. But a more open concept kind of living area where air can travel and flow between the different spaces will also benefit you.
When I think of kind of the trends that I see now in the industry, I do think we are seeing a lot more of archways, right? We're getting rid of those sharp angles. We're putting arches everywhere. We're putting slat walls are really popular now. I've seen recently I was on Pinterest and there was tabletop fountains that you said to put a running water piece. You can literally now get like a teeny tiny tabletop fountain, and that's just instead of your regular vase with flowers. Maybe you can substitute that as well. But I'm also thinking of gravitating maybe towards larger scale furniture. How do we kind of seamlessly integrate it from maybe the overall architecture to every single aspect of our homes, to the furnishings, to the plants, and make that all organic and play seamlessly together?
You can play a lot with even the texture of the furniture that you bring into the home. So you could have a solid wood dining table, but you could also have a jute rug underneath it to complement it. Your sofa could have a really bright kind of pattern on it that mimics flowers or greenery of nature. The textures that you use, instead of getting a flat kind of square couch, think of like the more rounded cloud couches, or they're so cute, right? Even the chairs that you have, mixing up a lot of different textures so that all the different surfaces that you come in contact with, just like nature, you won't find the same texture everywhere you go. You want to play around with texture, color, use a lot of earth tones if you can. Obviously don't, shy away from your purples and your bright blues, but try to incorporate more calming elements of greens, browns, neutral tones as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to see the sort of white and gray interiors
go
away, out, and we're seeing a lot more for sure, and of the organic tones, earthy tones, a lot of textures in our fabrics that we're bringing into the homes. Your drapery, you maybe have velvet drapes, and then like a tweed couch or something like that, right? And I think that definitely all plays a role in that sort of touch and feel, and feel a little bit closer to nature, in all of those aspects.
During COVID, we were all kind of stuck indoors. That's partially the reason why I think a lot of us wanted to become plant parents, because we're missing that aspect of going outside and associating with nature. So we wanted to bring that into our homes. And I think you can see like the toll that, being in an enclosed environment for long periods of time really does take on a society's mental health, right? I feel like everyone over the last 2 years now has really, initially when it happened, everyone was just kind of shut in. Nobody really got to talk to each other or see each other in person because of the mandates. But actually, COVID-19 acted like a catalyst to kind of vouch more for biophilic design.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially now that we're seeing, less people going back into the office, and more people are gravitating towards maybe buying a lakefront property, right? Kind of getting back into nature. I know I've had the thought of just getting a cabin in the woods and running away a few times. So I definitely think that you are absolutely right. It did act as a catalyst for people to be a little bit more conscious of their own space, of how they're spending their time, of how that affects their well-being, especially now that we're not in a space like an office where we're just forced to be in a cubicle 9 to 5.
Exactly.
I think people are becoming a lot more conscious of how important it is to bring these elements into your life in order to, feel better.
And tailor your space. Now we have the luxury, or some of us have the luxury, that we're working from home still, and to really alter and tailor your space. We don't have these huge corporate buildings anymore that we have to go to spend 8 hours there. So now that we're not all of us are going back into corporate buildings anymore, we can kind of tailor our own space to be more productive, help our mental health, and just take control instead of having nature kind of be something that we work against. Make it work for us, make it work with us.
And I guess that's really the definition of living in harmony with nature. And maybe we can get into the whole let's save the planet to make sure that happens, but we'll leave that for another time.
Exactly. But I guess the main thing of biophilic design is it's not us versus nature. It's that we are a unit together. The environment is a huge membrane in itself, right? It's here to sustain us. It's here to help us, nourish us. And we just have to be open to allowing it to do that for us.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah. It was really interesting. I'm sure listeners learned a lot because I definitely didn't know what biophilic design was going into this episode. And now I feel like I have a better idea of how to incorporate that into my own space and hopefully maybe become more productive.
I'm glad. I hope so, too. I'm definitely going to try to up my plant game, revive some of my dead plants. But
good luck with that.
I will definitely need it.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Know Your Reno. If you would like to get in touch with today's speaker or any of our large number of showrooms at Improve Canada, please check the description for a link to book an appointment with us at Canada's largest home improvement center. Don't forget to keep in touch with us on our socials, and we will see you next week for another value-packed episode to make your next home renovation a breeze.